Hi everyone, and welcome to this presentation, Reading for Uni. My name is Laura Ficorilli and I'm one of the language and learning advisors based in the library here at Charles Darwin University. Charles Darwin University acknowledges all First Nations people across the lands on which we live and work, and we pay our respects to elders both past and present. I would like to start with a quote which exemplifies the way we should all approach books and texts in general, with an open mind, a curious mind, and most of all, a critical mind. This is particularly true in a university context, where you are called to interpret and evaluate texts rather than only comprehend them to gather information. So books are not made to be believed, but to be subjected to inquiry. When we consider a book, we mustn't ask ourselves what it says, but what it means. So, what are we going to cover in this presentation? What does reading for university mean? What are the common challenges for students? Reading as a process and what it involves, reading actively and critically. Purpose, prediction and motivation for reading, or the expectations we have when we approach a text. Reading skills and strategies. So let's start with what is reading. Well, a simplified definition of reading would be the ability to draw meaning from the printed page and interpret this information appropriately. But is this definition sufficient? What other factors shall we take in consideration to help us understand what abilities one requires to read? Well, let's have a look at what is one of the first things you have to read or browse at least as you start uni. You would have to go through your unit's outlines and content. You may have already an idea of your areas of study, but reading the outline and content of the specific units you're taking is crucial for you to understand the scope and direction that your lecturer is guiding you through, and the issues that are going to be the focus of the topic at hand. When you click on that link, reading list, some challenges may become clear to you quite quickly. So this is a random reading list for a unit, and it's organized by weeks. How do you feel when you see the text that you are required to read? Do you think you're going to face any challenges? So what do the students say about reading challenges? It's hard to find the main points and concepts. Agreed, especially in consideration of the load of work that you will have to do. There's so much to read. I lose concentration after a few minutes because I start from the beginning and tend to read everything. Well, that is something that rarely works. And you run out of time if you do that. And if you don't get much out of it, you have to rethink your strategy. So how do you manage your time when reading? Sometimes the vocabulary is not easy to understand, and as you're just starting to familiarize with your discipline. Let's have a look at some of the factors impacting on individuals' reading abilities. There are quite a few factors at play if we consider reading as a process with different stages and outcomes. Each reader has individual reading skills and unique combination of both skills and strategies, which they may use differently in different circumstances. One's background, experience, and knowledge of the world comes to play when students are familiar with context and topics. In this case, they can predict quite easily what a text is about and make a better interpretation of it. Knowledge of grammar and vocabulary and the use we make of it on a day-to-day basis is a factor. If we are accustomed to reading, we would generally have a wider vocabulary and a better mastery of the language as a whole. The purpose, motivation, and interest we have in reading a text greatly influences the outcome of our approaching a text itself. Finally, our familiarity with particular type of texts also impacts on our ability to read. Well, let's look at the strategies now. Let's look at the challenges. So one of the challenges, as we saw before, was there is so much to read. Correct, there is a lot to read. One strategy to overcome this difficulty is to know your purpose for reading. Identify your purpose. In the case of the university context, and for students, apart from a personal interest in a subject, for example, this has to do most likely with your assignment, and specifically the assignment question or task at hand. So, identifying the purpose can be further broken down into questions to ask oneself, such as, what's the question I have to answer for my assignment? What information do I need to answer this question? Have I read enough to be able to answer it? If you're not sure, reread the task description of your assignment. Reread the question. This will help you delimit the scope of your reading and keep in mind the purpose for which you are reading. Let's try to identify which of the following purposes for reading are relevant at university. Take a minute to reflect. To obtain figures or factual information, to understand ideas or theories, to understand the reasoning behind an argument, to discover an author's viewpoint, and finally, to support your claim. Purpose for reading is also important in relation to the type of text you will have to read. Take a couple of minutes and look at the table below. Try to identify the academic and non-academic text on the left-hand side of this table. The answers will be in the next slide. Once you have finished with this activity, try to do something else. Match the definitions on the right with the nouns on the left. Again, the answers will be in the next slide. Take another minute to see if you answered correctly. Let's consider another challenge. It's hard to find the main points and concepts out of all the reading you have to do. The strategy here is to familiarize with the topic. Be curious about it. Read and research about it when you can. Also, read carefully your semester's unit outline. Make the most of the lectures. Take notes and ask questions. Revisit your notes at a later stage, highlight the main issues and contextualize them. What do they relate to? How? Where can I find more information? Join study groups or PASS, the peer-assisted study session, where you can unpack what you have read or even read with a group of peers. And a tip here is to use mind maps to make the connections among ideas, among concepts. This will help you to write your assignment later on. Another common challenge. Sometimes the vocabulary is difficult to be understood. This challenge is related to both the reading load and the fact that you may still be at the beginning in your area of studies. And so you have difficulties in understanding the specific vocabulary of your discipline. Again, the strategy here is to familiarize with the unit content as much as possible, browsing the material prior to lectures to tune in with recurring keywords and concepts. There may be a glossary somewhere on your online unit material or in the appendices of your textbook. If it's not there, build a glossary yourself. Tip: don't stop and look up every word you don't know in a dictionary. Try to guess non-familiar words through the context. Learn how to make inferences. It's a skill. Try to compare this reading process to how you select the main points from a text in order to write an assignment, and how you decide on what points you need. We make inferences all the time. We make inferences based on what we already know and can predict, which can make us fill up the blanks, so to speak. Let's look at this example of how we can make use of the context, linguistic in this case, even if we do not know a specific word. I felt so outraged that my face and neck became red and I had to stop myself from punching him. What if you did not know the word outraged? Would you still understand this sentence? What's an alternative word? Next is the challenge of losing concentration as you try to read everything line by line. Well, here the recommendation is to make it easier for yourself by familiarizing with the structure of the texts. This will help you understand the sections of the text that have the most relevance to your purpose. The better the predictions, the faster the processing of reading for your intended purposes. The more selective the reading, the higher the attention. For journal articles, for example, read the title, have a quick read through the abstract, look for keywords and identify the claims and arguments the author is making. Another look at the images and let's infer what the article is about. Look at the title. What relationship does this research, which we'll see in the next slide, try to establish? Let's read the abstract. What are the keywords in the abstract? Where do you look for what this research concludes? And this is the peer-reviewed article. and its structure. We have a title, we have the author or authors in this case, we have the abstract, which comprises the whole content of the research. The introduction follows, which gives an outline of the research and reports on the existing literature and its relevance to the research in question. Then we have the methodology, the methods used to collect data and to analyze them. Then the results, what came out in relation to the research question or hypothesis. Finally, we have the discussion and/or the conclusion, which highlights the significance of the research and the implications of the findings against the research area. The references come last. Be organized, be focused, and manage your time. Check the reading list and the actual readings required in the unit's outline. Check your overall workload. How do you allocate reading time? Be clinical. Be selective. How many journal articles? How long are they? What chapters of the textbook are the relevant ones, the ones you need for your assignment? Let's recap the strategies then. Strategy 1, know your goal, know your purpose for reading. Strategy 2, familiarize yourself with your topic, be curious. Strategy 3, identify keywords and concepts. Strategy 4, make use of text structure. Strategy 5, get organized, stay focused, be selective. Make use of digital tools, notes, bookmarks, files, and reading lists. In a word, read actively. In sum, understanding academic texts beyond discipline-specific vocabulary is a challenge. Academic texts, and especially journal articles, are written in a formal style. Sentences tend to be complex as they have to explain research processes, support arguments and claims, etc. Read actively. Focus on the purpose. Don't stop the flow of your reading for each word you don't know or you are unsure about, unless it's absolutely necessary. Try to infer, make a guess based on the context of what you are reading. In most cases, your guess would be right and you'll become better and better at this. And then the magic word, practice. And remember, if you get stuck, pay us a visit. Go to the CDU library page and click on Assessment Help, follow the prompts and book an appointment with a language or learning advisor. Thanks for watching.